What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to my channel, Alchemist. Justin here, and are you ready to work with the lunar shenanigans? Get a feel for the week, because this is an interesting one that we're going to be kind of moving through. I find that the moon is going to be the moon starts off really nice. There's some really supportive aspects. Mars is trying to throw a wrench in there for some reason. I don't know. We had this party. Some Mars decided to crash it. I don't know how it got it. So I got the address, but we're going to have to deal with it. But it's going to be fine. We got Venus and Jupiter supporting that. And then it gets busy. It starts off really kind of nice, busy. Then it just gets just like a lot of energy just going on there as we get towards the end of the week. So we'll process all that here in a moment. But if you're new here, again, my name is Justin, and one of the things that I do in this channel is talk about the lunar shenanigans, which just goes over the astrology of the moon, what sign it's in, what phase it's in, when it happens to be going void of course, and just to get a feel through the week as the moon is distributing the energies, as it has different conversations with the different celestial bodies. And I'm going to be going over the week of September 9th through the 15th, 2025 here, so then we'll jump into this thing. And just a reminder, I have down in the description box, I have timestamps for all of these videos there. So if you want to go through these videos day by day, that's definitely an option for you there. But let's go ahead and jump into this thing, because we're starting off green and love that. So we start with the Tuesday here, the 9th of September. The moon is chilling there, fiery in Aries, and I find just the moon in Aries in general, that's an energy to just to feel alive, to do things that just get the soul pump, get the blood pumping a little bit, to do something that's invigorating, that can be, just gets the moon feeling this sense of aliveness. And with the moon being in that kind of waning phase, that's a great time. The moon's kind of losing light now. Great time for cutting things out. So maybe some things that maybe have been impeding you, that have been bringing about low energy, that could be a really great way of working with that just in general. And I would pay attention to, if you happen to have a lot of cardinal placements, that's going to be Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn. The moon transiting through here may be a little bit busier for you. But the moon starts off with a trine with Venus, and that's a really lovely feeling. The trine is when the celestial bodies are 120 degrees apart from one another. They're in like elements here. So you got again, this fire with the moon in Aries, Venus in Leo. And that to me gives very inspired. That is very fun. That moon is initiating the fun, and then Leo's keeping it going. That's what I really like about this energy. I think that when we think about the significations of Venus wants harmony, wants concord, wants laughter, wants balance, wants equilibrium, wants beauty. This could be a great time for hanging out with some people, finding people who really kind of lift you up, scheduling some sort of things, whatever that might be looking like there. Because then the moon also too is going to be forming a square with Big Papa, who's in the moon's home sign of Cancer, all exalted. So that's also fantastic. They're actually very close with one another there too, so that's actually really nice. But the one challenge there in all this pocket of niceness is that you have the moon opposing Mars here. And one way that I could see this coming up, because when you think about the opposition, as you can see if you're looking at the video here, is when the celestial bodies are in opposing signs to one another there. So there's something that's coming up with the feeling, some sort of challenge, something that's agitating, something that's inflaming with Mars there. A certain conversation, someone said something, or maybe some piece of news, where we're thinking about Libra energy, that air energy. But this could be where maybe there's all this, maybe you happen to be at like a group gathering, for example, and there is all this, this kind of this loveliness thing that's going on, but maybe you feel a bit ostracized from that. Or, maybe because, maybe there's this thing that's going on, but you decided to stay home, maybe decided to put yourself in exile, feeling like that it's, maybe now, because Mars can do some weird things. Mars can have this kind of deceptive or misdirective quality. So I would look at any sort of things that are trying to keep you from having that sense of balance, appreciating some of the good things in life. I think that's where that moon squaring Jupiter there is overcoming Jupiter there. So the emotions may overcome the trust that there is a chance for things to get better, a chance for things to improve, a chance to be in harmony, despite, so this one is ultimately, I put green there because you got the hardest aspect with the lesser benefic, or excuse me, with the lesser malefic, and the best aspect with the lesser benefic. So it's kind of canceling out each other there. They're kind of neutralizing each other. And I think it's finding the challenge would be that moon square Jupiter to find the people who are going to lift that up, who are going to support that. This may be a time where maybe if you have people who are kind of feeling in like a low kind of vibration there, kind of feeling a little stagnant, kind of maybe distancing yourself from a little bit. And I shouldn't say low vibration, maybe they're just having a hard time. This may just be just a difficult, again, transits that may be kind of going on here as that's going through their chart. We're all feeling these things differently, but we can still all band together and be in this as we're going through these differences. And that may be the challenge that the moon Mars has, trying to reconcile those themes. But I think that the moon is still trying to have the best qualities come out in this, because when we get into Wednesday, the 10th of September, the moon was pretty much, it's gonna carry that energy till about 1 o'clock, well, till about 1:03 p.m. And again, that's Pacific time. And then the moon's gonna move into its exaltation of Taurus, and now it's gonna be like Jupiter and like Mercury. We got all these celestial bodies in exaltation right now, and in great conversation with one another. Because when you think about the moon in Taurus, this to me is like the moon. You're entering into your home garden. Everything is, you have all of the supplies that you need. The conditions are just ripe. The sun is out, the birds are chirping. This is a really great, I love when the moon is in Taurus. I think that these are really great times for really just in general, just getting grounded in the body, working with like essential oils, cooking yourself a meal, doing some workout in the garden, or just getting out and just putting your feet on the earth in general. Go feel the sun on your skin, things like that. Go feel the breeze, play some nice music, whatever that is. I think that would be very Venusian things. This would be a really great energy, I think, working into that, especially if Mars did something that kind of frayed the edges a little bit, that got you feeling a little frazzled. This could be something that can help just kind of ease things out, just kind of even things out a little bit, for the moon to just feel more regulated, I think, as the moon's working in Taurus, which is a lovely energy to carry into, because then as we get into Thursday, the 11th, moon kicking in its exaltation. Now the moon is starting to complete some of these aspects with these planets that are, starts with the moon trining Mercury, which again, both of them are exalted, and Mercury is even doubly, because Mercury is exalted and in its domicile here. So this can be a chance where if Mars was bringing up some things earlier, now that problem solving Mercury can make sense of it, and it doesn't have to feel rushed by it. This is something where take your time, with whatever situation that maybe challenge that's coming up for you, or whatever's being highlighted. Take a minute with it, be with it, because the nice thing too, the moon, or excuse me, Mercury and the sun, just as by the way, they're coming up on a Kazemi here. So this could be just a time with even just going to the moon trining sun to just feel like oneself again. If there was a routine that you started that you got out of practice with, this could be a great time to work that back in. Maybe you were walking before but got out of practice, or maybe you were getting more rest, but then things got busier. It could be just a way to incorporate those things back there to work with that moon sextiling Jupiter. A way of just relieving yourself from some of the strife, maybe that's going on, just again to feel this sense of trust that things can, to have faith, that things can get better, that it doesn't always, because I think if the moon doesn't do anything else, it reminds us that things pass. And that includes, when we're going through challenges, that the moon will move through that, and that there will be good times as well. And I think with the moon squaring Venus, if there's going to be, because the squares I should have mentioned, this is when the planets are 90 degrees apart from one another. It's a harder aspect, but it's a hard aspect with the benefics. The worst aspect that, when we're talking with the benefics is no aspect, So there's still an opportunity here for, with the moon squaring Venus, I would even say to, again, bring that sense of harmony, but it's something that requires a bit more work, a little bit more effort on our part here. But again, it doesn't feel like something that you have to rush, I think, with this moon in Taurus. I think that is something that can take its time and let it build organically, just kind of, yeah, it could just be really, I think it's just be, for lack of a better word, just be really nice. I think these next couple of days, I really like, especially September 11th. This is a really really nice day. I think to kind of work with energies of just to get the feeling back in a sense of alignment, no matter how big or how small. Any sort of progress, I think, is positive progress here. And oh, I wanted to mention too, this may be a more active time if I didn't already mention. If you have a lot of fixed placements, that's going to be Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. So that's something to just kind of pay attention to there. But then we move into Friday. Now it's kind of coming off that high there. The on the 12th of September, before the moon moves into Gemini, the moon is going to going to complete a sextile with Saturn, who's retrograde in Pisces. Now, again, with the sextiles, they're when they're 60 degrees apart, so they're like a trine but just a bit weaker. They require a bit more initiative when it comes to getting the beneficence out of there. But the sextiles can create that same sense of like easy flow of opportunities, of creative problem solving. And even though Saturn is kind of in the overcoming position here, this could be being able to take kind of that, because Saturn can bring about this sense of depression, that kind of melancholy, that sense of constraints and bonds and feeling restricted. And it could make those Saturnian challenges feel a bit easier, to feel a bit more surmountable. Make it feel like that even if I'm just noticing just like increment, the smallest bits of changes, some change is better than no change. Let's say if you've been working on your sleep and it's like, what, I went from sleep getting like 4 hours of sleep, now I got 4.5 hours. That's a win. That's a win. It's only a half hour, but hey, next time I'm gonna go for 5. And then you keep going at that. It creates a different type of attitude there. I think that when we're relating with Saturn, and then we're relating with the malefics, because they're not always hard. Sometimes that these challenges, they're meant to help promote more growth. They help us to cut out things so that we can work in some newness, work in some more beneficence there. So, and this energy is going to be one that we kind of take into Saturn day there. But before we get into that, I should mention too, before I get ahead of myself, the moon is going to move into Gemini at about 2:38 p.m. and that'll be Pacific time. And now we've gone from the sort of like chiller pace of Taurus, and now the mental energy's kind of kicked on a little bit more. The moon in Gemini is light energy, it's mutable air, it's ruled by Mercury. So now the mind is flowing, and it's like, we're thinking, we're feeling the things. And I find that this is just a great time in general for, if you really want to get just a good, to really kind of ground your thoughts, journaling, I think, is a great one for Gemini. Doing any kind of like voice memos, talking with people, I think, is a really great thing. Just having those ways of helping the thoughts to flow, I think, is really great for Gemini. I think that sometimes they can accumulate a lot of things. When we're working with that kind of Gemini energy, can get a little overly stimulated. So you have to make sure to take some time to get in, to make some space, to kind of clear out the clutter, I think, with that. But otherwise, I think that this is just a great one for just kind of socializing, for just keeping the energies a little light there, which might be a little challenging because things are starting to build up here. I think that as we get into Gemini, things get busier. Because the moon's not making any aspects, as we move into Saturday, the 13th of September, the moon's not completing any aspects on this day, but it's ramping up to form a whole bunch of conversations on the next day. It's going to talk with the sun and Mercury, it's going to talk with Venus, it's going to talk with Saturn, it's going to talk with Mars. And so, this would be one where if you notice that you're one that does tend to get overly stimulated, that does, feel a lot of anxiety, however that may show up for you, taking the steps for that. I would maybe reduce the amount of screen time that you're having during this period of time, or maybe need to take a little more time alone. Maybe get out there, feel the breeze. Help, especially if you find, like, because sometimes I find when you feel cramped in a space. If you stay in a space for too long, that air can feel a little stagnant. So sometimes just getting out there can just help the mind just flow a little bit more. Taking some deep breaths, maybe while you're going on for a walk or something like that, I think could be a really great way of kind of working with this. Because when we get into Sunday, and as you can see, I barely can fit this stuff on the slide. Sunday, the 14th of September, we start off before the moon gets home. The moon's trying to rush home, but it's got a list of things to do. Because starts off with the last quarter, which is going to take place at about 3:32 a.m. That's when the sun and the moon are square one another, and when you think about that, that's specifically, hold on, let me pull up something here. That's specifically happening at 21 degrees and 52 minutes. But the moon square Mercury, or excuse me, moon squaring the sun and Mercury. First with the sun, you may be feeling that something is off. Maybe there has been some kind of like nervous energy, some kind of just something building up. Can't quite, with that moon square Mercury, maybe can't quite put your finger on it, but something is a brewing. And I think that with all of this energy, like I was saying, with the moon sextiling Venus, that's an opportunity to make sure to just try to find some balance in between that, find some harmony to try to ease this mental stimulation out. Because with the moon squaring the sun and Mercury, I find squares between, when you think about the Gemini and Virgo, that's just a lot of nervous, the nervous system is very active. So any sort of, I think, kind of illusion activities can kind of help with that there. But this could be too, maybe there was, maybe some kind of news that's, really kind of thrown you off in some type of way. And now this moon trine Mars, where this could be where, whatever this nervousness, maybe there's been some tensions around work, maybe tensions in relationship, whatever this is trying to build up, this moon trining Mars can bring you the energy to do something about it, to take some action, to not just, to maybe, I don't want to say necessarily confront an issue. No, this doesn't feel necessarily aggressive with the moon trining Mars, but to be able to articulate maybe a feeling, to be able to take action on it and to not let it overwhelm. I think it can be one way that the moon can work very well with this trining of work with this trine of Mars there. But there is some sort of challenge that's happening here with the moon forming that square, because that last aspect that the moon is going to form is that square with Saturn. And when you think about the moon squaring Saturn, especially with Saturn being in an overcoming position, this to me can be that self-doubt, that's coming in there, that, just certain obstacles that are coming in the way. Maybe this could be with the sun, being in that square. Maybe there's something from like a boss or something, or maybe maybe there's a news from like authorities, for like, we're talking like government or whatever that might look like. Something that's trying to bring some constraints, that's trying to bring some kind of restrictions there. And I think that moon trine Mars, I think there's something really, I think, important in there, that to not let whatever walls that Saturn brings up, let that deter you. That's where, this to me gives a moon trining Mars and all that mental energy. It's being able to think quick on one's feet, where it's like, okay, I received this challenging news. Mars and Libra can initiate, and then the moon in Gemini can be adaptable. It's like, okay, I'm gonna do this thing, and I'll just kind of figure, I'm gonna kind of wing it. Right now we're kind of moving through a lot of things there. But I would just pay attention, just in general. I could see this just as a very active time in just for all of us. Like a lot of just energies just in there. Just might be just general, just busyness. That might be coming on there. So just kind of pay attention to that as we're going into that, because then. And keep in mind too, the kind of wild thing is that the moon is going through all of these transits in a span of like 12 hours. So this is like, again, it's a very jam-packed day, and then it has to take all of that stuff, process that things, and then it moves into its home space of Cancer. And that's going to happen at about 5:30 p.m. And again, that's Pacific time. And when you think of the moon in Cancer, now it's in its domicile, it's chilling at home, it's able to get into it's able to now hopefully able to process everything that it was just thinking through. And that's what I find with Cancer, things do get a bit more introspective. It does dip into what we're feeling now. We're getting out of that mental energy, and now it's like what's going on in the body. How is that really kind of resonating? How is that moving through all of us? And that really kind of goes into Monday, the 15th of September. We're kind of now we're getting into the waning crescent phase there, and we're getting to where we're about like a little less than a week away from the solar eclipse that's going to be happening there. And so with whatever that goes on, I think during these especially this what happens between like the 13th, the 14th, the 15th, this, I think the moon in Cancer here could be a great time to just take some time and be with your emotions, be with what you're feeling, move through what whatever, allow whatever it is that you're feeling to move through you as much as that makes sense, not to force something, or if things get overwhelming. But yeah, this is really kind of an interesting way, I think, to kind of wrap up the week, as we move into this. And then it's like next week it starts off with another kind of jam-packed day as well there. So not quite out of still got quite a bit of a couple spikes that we're going to be kind of feeling here, I think, collectively as we're moving through this energy here. But this is why, I think it's good to get eyes on the moon, to kind of feel and then to be able to respond accordingly, especially, if you know what's kind of going on, if this is forming like harder aspects in your chart. And this would be something where with the moon moving into Cancer, pay attention if you have like Cancer placements, Libra, Capricorn, and Aries in particular, because those points will be maybe more active during that period. There may be more activity happening there. But yeah, this is going to be the kind of the feel of the week there. So definitely take advantage of that early pocket. I got some exciting stuff there that I'll be unveiling here soon. I'll actually be releasing something some big news on the 11th there. But yeah, try to take advantage of that 11th, that period of time, the 10th, the 11th, the 12th. Yeah, because then it gets interesting, as we get into the latter half of the week there for sure. And if that's something where you want to see how that is coming up in your chart, you want to see, because especially if you happen to be in a moon year, you want to pay attention to those lunar transits. But if that's something you want to see how that's showing up in your chart, or if you want to schedule any sort of like planning kind of like elections, whether that be from weddings to trips and things along those lines, down in the description box is a link to book a consultation with me, so definitely check that out. And if you have any questions about the services that I provide, my email's down there as well, so feel free to check that, or to send me a messages regarding any questions you may have. And then last couple of things here, there are a couple of playlist tabs down there. Well, actually, just like one of them. The one's going to be, no, there'll probably be like two. One for Lunar Shenanigans, and the other one's going to be it's Celestial News Weekly right now. I'm going to change it to monthly here as we get into October. But it talks about the sun and the other classical planets, where they're transiting, what signs are going to be most affected, and how to most practically work with those energies. And then I have this series of videos that I'm doing that talk about different celestial bodies and different zodiac signs in different houses. And they're all under playlists for you. My thoughts around them and how to approach them, and what are some things to look at as if you navigate those placements for you. So all that's down there available, all that is available for you down there. So until next time, stay mindful out there. You keep eyes on that moon, and I will catch you on the next one. Moon Day. Or Monday.